Who does Marvel better, Disney or Universal? We're going to talk about it right now. Hey everybody, welcome aboard to another episode of Orange Grove 55. So in this video, we're going to compare the approaches of Disney and Universal in how they handle the Marvel franchise in the theme parks. And, which company comes out on top, the pros, the cons, the strengths, the weaknesses. I'm going to discuss it right now. So I'm going to kind of break this up into a few different parts, but the first thing I want to discuss are really the elephant in the room, the Spider-Man attractions. So you have the Spider-Man attraction over at Island of Adventure, and you have Web Slingers over at Avengers Campus. Now, comparing these attractions, I gotta give this to Universal. The Islands of Adventure Spider-Man attraction is one of the best attractions ever built. This is kind of like Universal's Indiana Jones Adventure. It's gotten awards. It really is an iconic attraction. Okay, I'm sorry. Web Slingers at Avengers Campus is a fun little D-ticket attraction, nowhere close to what the Spider-Man ride does over at Island of Adventure. There's just no comparison. So in this arena, Universal comes out on top, like way ahead of Disney. Okay. Now, in terms of other attractions, okay, let's start to compare some other attractions. It's not so cut and dry. Now, I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Okay, so this right here, this is something that I feel is a negative for the Universal attempt at Marvel. Why is this a negative? Now, look, it might be the most fun coaster on the planet, okay, and that's fine. But in terms of theming, painting a coaster green and calling it Hulk is very reminiscent of what Six Flags does with a lot of their superhero coasters, right? You see it a lot with these Six Flags parks. They'll paint a coaster black and yellow and call it Batman the Ride, right? They'll paint a coaster like green and purple and call it the Riddler. This is what this Hulk coaster reminds me of. Those Six Flags attempts at superhero rides. You paint a coaster green and you call it the Hulk. This is not the top tier, top shelf theming. Universal has done much better. This is not a plus, in my opinion, for Island of Adventure Marvel Island. I think that Mission Breakout is a much stronger attraction. I think it's better themed overall. This is just a coaster. They painted it green and they called it Hulk. So on this comparison, I think that they've really fell short. I think Island of Adventure lost this. I think that Avengers Campus does a much better job with some of their other thrill rides, such as Mission Breakout. I think it's a much better themed attraction, in my opinion. All right, so now we're going to get into the subject of aesthetics of the lands. Okay, now in regards to aesthetics of the lands, I'm actually going to have to give this to Avengers Campus. Again, I'm going to have to give this to California Adventure. I really don't like the aesthetics of the Marvel Superhero Island over at Islands of Adventure, and I'll tell you why. I understand the concept, what they were going for. Okay, the concept was we're going to have these big, 2D characters tacked onto the buildings, kind of give it like a comic book vibe, a comic book energy. The issue with this is that sounds great on paper, but the implementation, the execution of that concept doesn't work. It just looks cheap. It just looks like 2D plywood flats tacked onto buildings. It doesn't feel like a comic book. It just feels cheap. This reminds me very much of the California letters that used to adorn the entrance to California Adventure. I hated those letters. They looked super cheap, and everyone would tell me, but Orange Grove, it's supposed to be like you're walking into a postcard. I get that. That was the concept, but it doesn't feel that way in execution. And that's exactly how I feel with these 2D huge characters just tacked onto these buildings. I understand what they were going for, but you don't get that impression. It just looks cheap. Aesthetically, I don't like the way that Universal handled Superhero Island. Look, Universal has done fantastic things in terms of aesthetics. The entrance to Islands of Adventure is one of the most beautiful, well-executed lands. I'm sorry, not lands. Entrances to any theme park. I mean, the entrance to Islands of Adventure is gorgeous. It's gorgeous, absolutely beautiful, well done, perfect. Okay, they do amazing things. This is just not one of them, in my opinion. The Superhero Island is hideous. It's absolutely hideous. I much prefer, in my opinion, I much prefer the look of Avengers Campus. The look of Avengers Campus, which, in my opinion, just in my opinion, is much more aesthetically pleasing. I like the campus vibe. I love the tile work, the really creative, decorative tile work they did throughout the land. It feels more like a fleshed out environment, as opposed to the Island of Adventure land, which feels very cheap. Again, it's a lot of 2D flats and just kind of ugly, like multicolored buildings. So again, for the aesthetics of the overall land, I got to give this one to Avengers Campus. Now, another thing that we do have to discuss here, because it's a big thing, it's a big thing, is the future of these lands. Okay, because that really does. Anytime you deal with like a theme park, a theme park or just a land within a theme park, you have to consider potential expansions. Where can you see this area going in the future? Now, California Avengers Campus has a lot of potential in that arena. They can, the sky's the limit. It bumps up against Hollywood Land, which is really a dead land. It has a lot of room to expand. They can add that Avengers e-ticket that's been heavily rumored for the park. They can add a Black Panther attraction, Eternals. They can really do whatever they want. Disney owns Marvel. They can do whatever they want here in Avengers Campus. Okay, whatever they want. The Marvel Superhero Island, though, at Universal over in Florida, they're very limited. Disney's not going to allow them to build a brand new attraction over in Islands of Adventure. They're very limited to just kind of beautifying and plussing what they already have. So Marvel Superhero Island is a stagnant, kind of a stale land. It's a dead end land. It's not going to expand ever. They're going to redress and repaint and beautify the same area, the same attractions over and over and over again till the end of time. Okay. So I think that the Avengers Campus overall, it has more potential going forward. Okay. And I think that's a plus. That is a huge plus for this attraction. And not just that. I mean, look, kids growing up today, when they think of Marvel, they think of the MCU, like the MCU versions of these characters, Chris Evans, Robert Downey, Scarlett Johansson. That's the MCU to most kids, to most people even. The Islands of Adventure Superhero Island is heavily based on these comic book versions of these characters, which are increasingly looking more and more dated. So future prospects, I think the Avengers Campus has a much brighter future for expansions and plussing and adding and just synergy and all of that stuff. So look, I understand. Okay, I understand a lot of people love Superhero Island over at Island of Adventure, and there's a lot of great elements in that land. And I think there's things that it does more successfully than California Adventure. I just think that overall, in terms of aesthetics, in terms of potential going forward and things like that, I think that Avengers Campus is the better area. I really do. I think that in terms of Spider-Man rides, I think Universal has definitely the advantage over Anaheim for sure. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. Look, this is all subjective. Okay, it's all subjective. Not everyone's going to obviously agree with me on this, but comment below. What do you guys think about these comparisons, what I think is pretty interesting, of Avengers Campus and the Marvel Superhero Island over at Islands of Adventure. Do you agree with my pros and cons of each land? Do you disagree with them? I think a lot of people might disagree with me on this video, and that's fine. If you do, comment below. I want to hear from you. I appreciate all opinions. Just be civil in the comments. That's all I ask. But if you disagree with me, you're welcome here. Absolutely welcome here. I want to hear from you. So thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, have a marvelous, marvelous day.